Hello, everyone, and welcome to IEK's channel, where we'll be having future leaders talking to us about engineering matters and how they navigate the engineering industry as engineers. So with us today, we have two brilliant engineers, plus myself, of course, ready to talk to us about, their experiences, what they do. So I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll jump right into it. So, Engineer Gibson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Engineer Gibson Maina, a corporate member of IEK, and of course, a registered member with the EBK. I'm a transportation engineer by practice at IEK Engineering Limited. Previously, I've worked elsewhere. I've worked with the government, I've worked with contractors, and now I work with the consultants. So, welcome to the channel. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Thank you, Engineer Muguru.
Hello, everyone. I am Engineer Muguru Wairimu, a professional engineer and a corporate member of IEK and also a member of IEK, where I am now the current chair. I am a transport planner, municipal and highway engineer. Yes, I separate them into three because they are three different fields of the same thing. And I am happy to be here, so welcome to the channel.
Yes, and last but not least, I myself, Mary Abungu. I'm a member of EBK and IEK. I am a transportation engineer. I work at Timcon Associates. I have a master's degree from a Shivling scholarship. I just wanted to throw that in. The Luo in me could not help myself. And I run an NGO as well in sustainable mobility. So with us, we have brilliant engineers and we want to hear conversations on their brilliant work that they're doing and also connect us as young engineers to the public, our experiences. So we'll jump right in. Why engineering? Was it something you always wanted to do? Were you passionate about it? Did you have a different trajectory? Or were you like me, who just wanted to outsmart my dad? Yeah, he was a professor in mathematics, so I think I win. But how about you? Why engineering?
So you're going to be a professor?
Well, I think engineering trumps professor in mathematics. Yes, if you're watching that, Dad, I won. Yeah.
That's the ego in engineering. Anyway,
Yeah.
For me, I don't think I thought about being an engineer actually, I decided to be an engineer just a few months before I joined campus. Before then, I had not really thought about what I wanted to become. I was just there, just reading and making sure that I get A's in high school. And I think the earliest I can remember about thinking of a career was when I wanted to become a pilot when I was a young boy. And I think this is similar to most people. I think at one point you want to become a pilot or you want to become a soldier. And then in high school, that's when you start thinking about careers.
So
but I did not think about careers in high school.
Plan B?
It was not a plan B.
Oh, just to clarify.
So when I was in when I was in high school, I was very good in biology. So everyone thought I would become a doctor. And nobody asked me what I wanted to become. They just assumed that I wanted to become a doctor. And so I have an elder sister who is a pharmacist. And at one point, I engaged her on what medicine is all about. And she took me through the profession and what you have to deal with. And at one point, I realized that I didn't want to be dealing with sick people, sad people. I think it's something that I didn't want. So I was running away from being a doctor, and I found myself in engineering. The first choice was, I thought about choosing electrical engineering. But then I cleared high school in 2008, and there was a boom in construction. And I remember one guy who was a friend of my sister telling me that I should think about civil engineering. Like, I will not lack a job. The infrastructure industry is doing good. And that's how I chose engineering. So I got into campus, and the first year was good. I was okay. But the second year was a bit difficult. And I was asking myself, I still want to become an engineer. And I remember struggling really to concentrate in class and all that. But that year, fourth year, I started liking engineering. And I remember I used to have a lecturer called DM Wanjau who used to come to class and call me the man from Kirinyaga.
We all remember him.
Can you define for us who an engineer is? And I used to read it almost every time we were in class. So I think with time it got into me that engineering is a noble career, and things that you do, the solutions you bring to the society, and eventually I liked it. And actually I liked it not because of any other thing, but because of what you do for the society and for the community, the solutions that you bring to the society.
Right. Maybe just to keep on that track of how you were asked to define engineering, to a lot of our audiences who are not engineers, I think they don't fully understand the different disciplines in engineering. I think we are all civil, but we are civil, there's civil transport and there's civil different disciplines. Could you just break it down and help them understand, how civil is broken down into the different engineering aspects? Yeah.
I think I'll go back a little bit and say that engineering is very broad, and we have many disciplines in engineering. I think the ones that are known, those are prominent. We have civil engineering, we have mechanical engineering, we have electrical engineering. But you also have other engineering aspects. We have biosystems engineering, or what we call agricultural engineering. We have computer engineering, we have chemical engineering, we have marine engineering. We have so many other engineering disciplines that are coming up. We even have mechatronics engineering that is taught in campuses. So we have, and it comes from the definition of what engineering is all about. And I think an engineer is somebody who basically uses science and mathematics to bring solutions to the community. You use the available resources, combine it with science and mathematics, and you bring solutions to society. So if you are doing that in whichever field that you are in, you are an engineer. Now coming to the different aspect of civil engineering. Again, in civil engineering, we have so many. It's a very broad engineering discipline. In civil engineering, we have transportation engineering, what I do. We have highway engineering. Basically, we have roads and infrastructure engineering. We have structural engineering that deals with buildings. We have water engineering that deals with water. And even in that, if you take like structural engineering, or what we call the building sector, we have different aspects of engineering that people specialize in. We have geotechnical engineers, we have the actual structural engineers. And if you come to now in roads, we have traffic engineers, we have highway engineers, we have again geotechnical engineers, we have structural engineers for bridges. So it is a very wide discipline that you can choose different professions and careers in. So if I was just to add, like in mechanical engineering, we have some people who go to plant engineering. We have some people who go to automobile engineering. We have some people who go to air conditioning engineering. So there are many aspects of engineering in all these disciplines. I don't know whether I've answered that.
I think you've covered much more than we had asked.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But Engineer Muguru, why engineering? Is it something you had expected it to be as of now? Are you happy where you are? Has the journey been the experience that you were expecting? Just take us through.
I didn't know what to expect in engineering. I was never going to be an engineer. I'd never even thought about it. And having done KCSE in the class of 2009, we had this weird physics practical. And I remember when we were done with it, I told my physics teacher, I am leaving physics here. I'm not taking it forward. So all my life I wanted to be a doctor. Or better still, if you got good grades, people told you you're going to be a doctor. I think it was what was known. Then after school, I got the grades. So I'm like, are we doing medicine? I think we had superficial mentorship in school. And what I call superficial mentorship is that we had these careers day, and they would bring in private universities, or I felt like they brought in people who were advertising themselves. And I felt that the mentorship that they did not favor us as students. So that's how I even ended up doing accounting. So I'm qualified for an accounting license. It's just that I've never pursued that for it. Because after school, we went to do CPA. And so I still wonder, why did I do CPA? So they brought a lot of private universities, who were looking for clients after we are done with school. So I wanted to be a doctor, and I don't think I had the clarity that you can advance in medicine to a consultant and not be a surgeon. There was the stereotype, or there was the, and it's not true that when you advance in medicine you have to be a surgeon.
That's true.
And I knew I couldn't operate, so now I had to change my profession. And I remember one of our old girls in high school, during our wedding, I told her I don't think I can be a surgeon and all that, and then she told me do civil engineering in the University of Nairobi, and that was it. So we had, during our time, we had second selection. So we used to fill our campus, whatever we wanted to do it in campus, but we had a chance to revise. We were under job, right?
Yeah.
Joint admission board. So during the second selection, I went and changed from my first choice from medicine to civil engineering, and that's how I ended up here. So I think it's something that has grown on me. I am grateful. At one point, I had explored electrical engineering, and I'm so grateful I didn't do it. I would not have graduated. No. I think I've loved civil engineering, and I even started off in structures. Then I ended up in roads. The internships I did in school really impacted on me liking roads, and so I ended up where I am. And I said I am a transport planner, municipal and highway engineer, mostly because when you practice in different settings, like I've worked for a consultant for a long time. That's why I did a lot of highway engineering, design, road design, yeah. Then I went to an NGO where I was introduced to transport planning. And not all transport planners are engineers. We have architects, we have landscape architects, we have urban planners who are also transport planners. So I got to interrogate transport planning and now design of urban roads, and just getting to see the nuances between why we have municipal engineering and why we have highway engineering, because they are different. We may use the same RDM, but when you look at urban infrastructure in urban areas, the streets and urban roads, they differ so much with how you design a highway. So that's when now, with time, it's getting structured. Yeah. And that's how I've even come to love road safety, because it's in the NGO where I did road safety. Then now I worked for a contractor, and now that introduced me to project and contract management. Of course, in the consultant world, we do a lot of contract management, but I think when you're younger, you're totally oblivious to it. Yeah. So, yeah.
I like how you brought out the aspect of mentorship, because for me personally, I think structured mentorship got me to get to a point where I also took engineering. Like in your school, you mentioned how you got mentors who came and taught about accounting because they were selling their profession. For us, we had all sorts of professions coming to our school. And I think what stood out to me was how the women engineers, they were topping the industry, and they were breaking barriers, and it seemed interesting, and I decided to pick it up. And that mentorship aspect also got me to where I am today. So I'm just thinking about the whole transition, because you've talked about different aspects where you guys worked in. Was it smooth? Was it easy? Because in my experience, I was actually at some point a mechanical engineer working for a mechanical contractor. Like, how did I get there? Good question. But I think about the opportunities that were available at the time and how we were able to navigate them. So as young engineers, like, to get to where you are, how was your transition? Was it smooth? Was it challenging?
Can I first interrupt you? I'm so jealous that you got to interact with engineers, because the first time when I was in school and we got what I would call good mentorship was when they brought in students from UON, from medicine and pharmacy. I listened to them and I was like, yeah, those were the first time it made sense. And maybe that's why a lot of us were sold to medicine.
That's true. Yeah.
And so after that, now I actually talk to high schoolers about choosing courses and all of that. But anyway, let's go back to transition to how we moved from being student engineers to getting to the...
Was it easy? Because I feel like our seniors were picked from school. You got the grades, Wekuja hapa, Howard Humphreys. You come here, the ministry, railway. Yeah, they never struggled.
The funniest thing?
Yes.
We were picked from school by accountants. The big five.
I'll talk about something.
Yeah.
I'll talk about something. I think during our last year in campus, there is a company that was called Futures First. It's an investment company that came to campus. And they were looking for guys actually from engineering who can be investors. It was dealing with investment. And we went for the interview and actually passed. We went through several interviews, and I think there were about 5 or 6, and I passed all of them and I was picked. And I was confused about engineering because this was ready money. Leaving school and you have a job immediately after exams. But I remember I spoke to a guy who was my mentor during that time. And he was not an engineer. He was just a businessman, but he was a contractor on the side. And so he told me that, Gibson, just stick to engineering. Just stick to engineering. And actually, he's the one who got my first job. And I think I thank him for that because whatever she's saying is there were all these, the big 5, they are called the big 4.
PwC being among
to be
them.
fair, I think.
Yeah.
So they were really looking for people from engineering to go and actually work for them. And I think there's some of us who went to that path, which everyone has a path in life and maybe they have loved what they are doing. But I think for me, I love where I am. I love being engineering. So whatever she's saying is...
Yeah, we did have. And actually for me, that's where IEK comes in. Because IEK, they will come to school. We had Engineer Goro, he's been IEK leadership for a while. So they would come to school and they will mentor us on your career and transitioning from a student engineer to a graduate engineer. And so they kept telling us to stick to the profession. They really emphasized on that. So despite, of course, it would have been very easy for me. It was easiest for me to get to the big 5.
The money.
You see, they were calling us. They were looking for engineers who don't know anything about accounting, auditing. But I was a CPA. We call it CPAK. Okay, I had completed my CPA course. So, of course, now, for us, we would get the highest opportunities. And so after that, now that's how IEK mentorship is how I got to stick to engineering and how I got to join IEK. And I must admit my transition, I did a lot of internships in school, which got me my first job. But having been in IEK since I was a student to now where I'm the chair, I have seen that students who join us early and they're very active, they are referred to jobs more easily. They've had an easy transition because, of course, you have senior members there. You have senior members there. You have fellows there. You have professional consultant engineers. They're professional engineers. The
mentorship pool is quite wide.
You're like, I'm looking for a job, and you get a job. Or someone tells you, apply here. And I believe all of us who are young engineers in IEK may have gotten a job through IEK.
Well, I'm so happy for you because my experience was completely different. Well, I think one of the reasons I stuck in the profession is I always reminded myself that I did not do 5 years of school to go be an accountant. Nothing wrong with the profession, by the way. We love your accountants. But just imagining that I wouldn't practice all the 5 years of technical work that I had done in school. And I think it has been a challenge for us in the sense that I can literally count how many of my classmates I have seen in the profession. We graduated over 100 of us, and I can count. So I think a proper survey has to be done. If you'd ask me, I would ask our engineering bodies such as IEK and EBK to just do a proper survey to look at how many of our engineers have left the profession. I know so many engineers who are in banking and different professions. And it's quite sad because there's so much opportunity, just the element of transitioning. And I think we'd have to have conversations with our bodies. How do we want them to come in? What do you think you would give in terms of recommendations to like the Institution of Engineers of Kenya or EBK, the Engineers Board of Kenya?
I think maybe let me come in. I think I want to give credit where it's due. The IEK is doing a lot. I think I've attended 2 mentorship sessions where we have students from universities come to those sessions and we talk to them and we tell them about the industry, what to expect, what the challenges are, and how to navigate that transition from being a student to being an engineer. So they are doing a lot. I think also IEK is doing quite well.
That's right.
I think right now things are happening, but I also would call on engineers who have been practicing and they know what engineering is and they love it and they know that the payments, not only in terms of money but in terms of satisfaction with what you do, comes after some time. I think they should also give back to the community by visiting these universities, visiting even high schools, talk to people about engineering and how you should go about planning your career. So I think the professional bodies are trying, but we also would also want to call on them to actually engage more professional engineers, more consulting engineers to just visit these institutions and actually talk to people about the journey. Because I do remember when we were graduating in campus, some of us did not even know where we would go. Yeah. At least for me, there's someone who just took my hand and gave me my first job. But I remember we were having some jokes. I used to be at the University of Nairobi, and we used to have some time to study late at night, and sometimes do drawings late at night. And Engineer Goro was very strict about it, his drawings. So, and we would always encourage ourselves that when we graduate here, we are going to be paid, I don't know, 200,000. So we just have to persevere until we are out of the campus, and then our life is going to be good. And we'll just say that as engineers, you cannot lack a job as an engineer.
Right.
And I remember when some guys went for internship, that's when the reality started dawning on them, because you interact with engineers outside there and they're telling you, that's not how much you're going to be paid. Mm. And even you get some guys who are maybe a year ahead of you who don't have a job. And now reality started hitting you that the industry is not all that good. So it needs like a structured mentorship where you can educate people. Like, how do you get out of campus? What do you need to do? What kind of internship should you go? How do you network with people in the industry so that you can get a job?
Yeah.
And something else is, I think there's also something about how do you create a job if you cannot get a job? So that people, if you are not able to get a job, you don't despair and then you just leave the industry. So that you are able to actually transition into either being employed or becoming an employer. So I think that's something that needs to be done much more.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I've seen so much that I think I've participated in several mentorship sessions because it's always give and take. You know, I was mentored. I think I really also rose in the industry the way I wanted to because of the mentorship I received by association of IEK and EBK, but also being part of the mentorship sessions that they did structure. We've seen a lot of transition of graduate engineers to professional engineers, of student engineers to graduate engineers, and stay within the profession. And we love that. But we feel that there's still more to be done. And I love the idea you brought up on structured mentorship. Like, do we really understand what structured mentorship is? I feel like we solely focus our efforts on seeing it as, I will talk to you and I'll advise you and I will tell you how it's done. But do we understand the element of holding a hand of someone? If you look at personally in my mentorship journey, with people that have mentored me, we've sat down, we've had a roadmap of where you are, where you want to be, how you need to get to where you plan to be, and the channels you take. We need to have sessions with our younger engineers. I love the She for She, actually. There's a She for She program that IEK has. And through that, I think I've been able to mentor one of our young engineers and just give guidance on how you move from one path to the other, tackling issues like imposter syndrome. So that's an element I feel we need to talk on. And I want to bring about, as much as the transition is also hard for young engineers, how is it for employers? You know, how are they? Do they have the capacity to take us on as young engineers?
Before you go there, can I ask what's an imposter syndrome?
Wow.
Oh, must be nice.
It really must be nice.
Must be nice.
Yes. And I think this is an issue that affects mostly the women engineers in the industry. Like, even as I sit here, I still feel like I have imposter syndrome. He's asking
I don't feel I know.
What is that?
I know I have imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And, well, there's that bit where you're growing. At times you question, you've grown, you have enough experience, you still have more to learn. I think the one thing I've noticed about growing older is how apparent the gap is between what I know and what I need to know, and how to work towards that. But despite the gap, you know this much, but you still find yourself having the self-doubt. And you've seen people, you've been mentored through it, you have people who are backing you behind, but at the end of the day, at the back of your mind, you're like, how was that? How am I doing? Yeah, you get a lot of that. I'm proud of you. I think you need to guide us through how not to have it, because we have it, but I think what you do, you just push it at the back of your mind and you're like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do now. So then you're like,
so maybe better. To break it to Engineer Maina, who clearly has been privileged all his life to not have gone through imposter syndrome. This is whereby you have what it takes, but you increasingly add self-doubt, to your capacity, to your competence, to the sense that you don't take up spaces where you should be. Yeah. In your profession, mostly, because that's where it is. If you're sitting in decision tables, you always ask yourself, do I belong here? Does my opinion matter? And you'll find for us women, because generally the industry is male-dominated, about, say, I think EBK did a survey, on the female engineers in the industry, and we're about 22%. Yes. 80% of the professionals in the engineering industry are men. So when you think about it, you're like, if I don't see other people in the room, I already feel self-conscious because I don't see other female engineers in the room. And then you ask yourself, everything that I'm talking about, does it count, or is there an unconscious bias when I have a conversation or I give opinions or I demand for certain aspects to be put into place in terms of design, in terms of policy? So imposter syndrome comes in when you feel like you don't have what it takes, even when you do. And we women experience that more.
Or when you're doubting how you're doing it. Am I doing it correctly?
Exactly.
And it's something you've done over and over again.
Exactly.
You've watched it done. You've been mentored how to do it. But every time you're like, oh my God, was that okay? Is it fine? And you almost need someone to validate you, like, oh, it turned out well. It's fine.
I think maybe what I can say, maybe, I don't know. But I've always thought that engineers have this ego that there's someone who can do it, and one who is going to do it. And I think that's how I take challenges, because every time I'm faced with a challenge, I usually say that if it has come to me, then, and I'm an engineer, and an engineer can do anything. So I'm the one to solve this.
Do you get it even in a sense of a young engineer in decision-making spaces where you have, of course, your seniors before you? Do you feel like your opinion sometimes is questionable or it might not hold weight?
No, actually, I don't. What I have is...
Must be nice.
When my seniors don't take my opinion just because I'm junior. And it's not an imposter syndrome, it's feeling like we should not be talking about my age, we should be talking about the facts. If I have done something and it's correct, then it should be correct no matter who has done it. It does not matter whether I'm young or I'm old.
That is such good advice.
We will learn. No, I will learn from you. I will learn from you because... Okay, maybe it's something that we struggle with as ladies, and you're like, am I sure? Or you take up something and then you look at the impact of it and you're like, did I go too fast? Was this it? Am I sure I'm going to fit in correctly? Yes,
it is present, and I like the advice you've given, and it's something I also borrow a lot. Every time I walk into a place where I feel like I have an imposter syndrome feeling, the first thing is I recognize it. I am having imposter syndrome. The second thing, I validate myself and I tell myself, I belong. Whether I'm a young engineer, whether I'm a female engineer, I belong. The third thing is I tell myself, please have the audacity of a man. Please have the audacity of Engineer Maina. Yes, because with the audacity you guys have, you're able to easily navigate spaces, even when you're not sure. And, sometimes I always tell myself, when trying to navigate imposter syndrome, I have brothers. I know who they are. And I know I wouldn't advise certain women to date them. But they date beautiful women. Yes. So I tell myself, if they're able to date these amazing women with beautiful personalities, I can do anything. Well, no offense to my brothers, date them. They're also amazing people. But it's the audacity they walk with, it's the aura they have, and it's just the confidence in owning who they are as people. And it's something I borrow as well, not only in my personal life, but also in my profession. And it's advice I'll also give to younger engineers. Just walk with the audacity of a man. It gets you places, it gets you hard. And I think it's something that we all struggle with at some point as women engineers, but eventually we are here.
There's a time I almost had a panic attack because of something I was supposed to do. And I was so scared. I was like, this is beyond me. I had said yes to it, great. But I was so scared. And I remember a senior engineer told me, I have seen so many people who don't belong to this space thrive and do well. You will be fine. I didn't believe him, but every time I'm doubting something, those words get back to me and I'm like, okay, you'll be fine.
I think it's something that maybe should be spoken about. And I think maybe when now I think about it, it may be affecting our profession because you find that there's some people, no offense to any profession, but who are coming to our space and owning the space. And it's because maybe us engineers, I always think it's because we are introverted. We don't speak out. And then it comes to even policy making of regulation. You find these are regulations that's affecting engineers, but you are not able. Like, what is wrong with going to the street and saying that this is something that's affecting engineers and they want it changed? But often we keep quiet and it affects our work.
Yeah.
And I have always thought it's because we engineers, we are introverted. But it could be because of that imposter syndrome. We feel that that's not our space. Like, that's the politician's place. If it's a law that's being passed in parliament, that's a politician who is doing it. But I have always thought that it would be something that we feel like IEK or IEK have sponsored a motion through a certain MP, so that we can have something that's affecting us as engineers or as professionals in the construction industry being raised in parliament and be made better. Because just to mention, like, I know as an engineer, and I think most engineers in this industry have an issue with the PPRA, the issue of the contractors. If you get the minimum criteria technically, the lowest bidder gets a job. We have a problem with that. And it has not affected the consultants because the consultants, most of them are engineers by profession, and they understand that we need quality and cost-based selection when awarding the consultant services. But when it comes to contractors, who should also be actually professionals in the industry, because if I'm the one designing a road, then I need someone who understands the basics of engineering, and actually sometimes even more than me, to actually implement the job. So we should also have the same cost-based selection being taken up to award contract to contractors. But this is something that has been there since, I think it was revised in 2020?
Yeah, 2020.
And it's something that us as engineers, we should actually speak very vocally about and say that even for selecting of contractors, we need this kind of criteria to award them the contracts. Yeah. So that's just an example I'm giving. I think we have many other laws and regulations that need to be changed so that we can actually own our space. So just to say something, like, we had the scale of fees for engineers. And just to mention, if you look at lawyers, they are very particular on their scale of fees. You go to their office and they tell you, this is how much I charge. This is the scale of fees for us. But for us engineers, we have not really pushed and talked vocally about, so that whatever we have, a law that is favoring us, is actually out there and being used by everyone. The clients know these are the scale of fees and all that. So I think it's something that we need to
I like how you've brought about the topic of the future of young engineers in the country. And I couldn't agree more on how introverted we are as engineers is affecting, the future of our profession. like you've brought out that interesting aspect of the scale of fees. But if you interrogate more with the professions in the industry, they're like, yes, we have this scale of fees for different types of grades of engineers and would like to pay them this amount, but we don't have the money. If you look at consultants and a lot of the professions that are coming in from foreigners, how are we navigating that space? We, of course, have the 40% local content on projects in the country, especially if we're having foreigners coming into the space and undertaking projects in the country. But the implementation of it, is it actually being implemented? Is there a transfer of skills and knowledge?
No.
We've had so many cases.
Can I talk about that?
Yes, please.
I think yesterday I was in a stakeholders meeting about the Nairobi-Mombasa Expressway.
Right.
And I'm actually going to write a report because this is very personal.
Yeah.
I started working at SGR, and I also was very close to some bits of the expressway, so I was able to see it though from a distance. I didn't actively participate, but I had colleagues who were participating in it. And now there are several things that I am very particular about. When you have a huge project in this country or huge infrastructure in this country, how does it, one, impact the locals who are trained there, and how does it impact the profession? On Saturday, we had a build tour to this president's project, Kulamawe, Isiolo, Mogadashe.
Right.
And I was impressed at the number of local the local consultant who's involved in it, how many interns are in that project. So you look at that project and you're like, by the time it's done, it will have changed the lives of about 50 young engineers,
right,
and also impacted on the seniors, because once you do such a project, then, you know, of course, it raises your portfolio, it improves your skills, and it does a lot. Did the SGR do the same? Mm-hmm. No. And I'm one of those who even got the bell training. But what I felt about these huge infrastructure projects is that, one, there is a lot of, is there knowledge transfer? My issue with Chinese training, and I hope this is not controversial, is that
no, it's not. It's actually a reality.
Given a training, so we had there was the agreement where they train locals of the countries where the Chinese are working, and I was part of those who were chosen for that. Of course, it was during COVID, so we didn't go to China, but it's fine. I benefited from that. And you realize that you're trained, you're given material. For those who went to China, it self-destructs after a month. Mm-hmm. For us, it self-destructs after a week. If we're going to be hired like 100 engineers in this, and we only trained 20, as someone who's trained, I should be able to train another person. Yeah. And we have that knowledge transfer. Mm-hmm. When we hire local content, 40%, what does that mean? Have you involved? When I get involved, maybe I'm getting involved at the supervision space, something has happened before I was involved. Is anyone going to take me through the feasibility studies, preliminary design, the detailed design, at least to understand how some of those decisions were made in a way that by the time I'm done with that project, I can replicate the same without bringing in international experience. When you look at these things about, like, what is the impact? And also, what is the impact of such projects to what we have? Like, look at the expressway. What is the impact on the lower deck? How has that affected safety? How has that affected... Are you working in a space where you're working under seniors? There's a lot when you think about knowledge transfer.
That's true.
And there's so much that happens before the infrastructure gets to the country. Mm-hmm. Who is going to train the people who are employed in that project? Whatever happened before they got there. Are you telling me they're going to leave without even knowing what happened there?
Yeah.
We really need to check onto that.
So thank you. Sorry. So as we look into how we can navigate these conversations, how we can table them with our seniors, of course, those in IEK and EBK, how do we see them regulating the profession, them coming in? For starters, I feel like no engineer should be jobless, leave alone getting into government or into consultancy, the space is wide, especially with the construction industry. We had a booming construction era in the past few years. I know construction has gone down a bit, but this construction industry should have employed as many graduates as possible. What is NCA doing about it? I know they're working with IEK to strengthen the construction laws. I feel like there's a lot being done, and I understand that efforts are being put in, though I feel like they're a bit slow. Why? Because of our introverted nature as engineers. We're not in spaces, we're not talking about this. We hear about them. Like if we ask ourselves as young engineers out there, how many webinars have we attended on the sensitization of policy matters in the country? There was a transport policy webinar recently on the new
on Monday.
the NMT policy.
Actually,
Monday.
It was Nairobi.
Nairobi County is
Nairobi
having
County.
some laws.
Yes, Nairobi County Transport.
Yes.
Let me just confess that I missed that, but I will find the video and watch it. But the whole idea is are we really focusing our efforts into understanding what's happening in the country with our profession and how it's affecting us? And are we also able to understand it and break it down to the public? What are we doing as young engineers in our own profession? I feel like the industry oversight bodies are trying. Yes, there's so much more that they can do, especially in strengthening those policies and regulating as much as possible. In implementation, we do have laws, some policies, and a lot of them are in place and give guidance. But in the implementation bit of it, a lot of the reasons why so many graduates are not employed is because so many construction companies have a checkbox. Do you have an engineer? Tick. Then let's do the job. You as an engineer, you're out. Consultants maybe are not able to take on so much capacity because that 40% local content is not being implemented. There has to be a lot of push, But what are we doing even as government agencies, giving out the projects? Are we ensuring that the checks and balances are in place to secure the profession? We do not mind foreigners coming in. In fact, we want them in. We want to gain from the skills and knowledge. It's trade.
We want to gain. For instance, Chinese. You've all worked with Chinese contractors, right?
Yes, I've worked with Chinese contractors.
Who do they employ? Young graduates.
Young graduates.
Mm-hmm. They have young graduates. And they have very old people, especially in materials. But now there is the language barrier with them.
Right.
But most of them employ young graduates.
Actually, let me say, for me, I was privileged to work with a Chinese contractor. He's actually their site agent and their site manager. And I must say that now I was coming in as someone who is giving them, selling my skills to them and my knowledge. And that really impacted my career because I was able to make decisions. But when I looked at the people who are working under me, like you find that a Chinese just takes the whole space and they're not able to pass the knowledge to the young guy. And I think it's something to do with their culture because I really interacted closely with them. Like a senior can talk anyhow to a junior, and the junior should not talk back to the senior. For us, we come from a different culture whereby it's more of integration and interaction and collaboration between your seniors and your juniors. But the Chinese have this military way of working where a foreman can be deported today because he did something which was felt was wrong by his senior, maybe the engineer. So we are not able to really integrate the two cultures. So you find that most Chinese, they'll bring even their foreman, and their foreman is just, you find they're not even learned, but they're just people to push the Kenyans to work. Mm. So it is something that maybe IEK and other regulatory bodies can look into. Like, we have different cultures. I think it's the same thing that was being spoken about by the minister, that we have different cultures with Saudi. So our ladies find themselves having issues there in Saudi. So if you have different cultures, what do you do about it? Of course, you cannot train me to be abused, to be beaten by a Chinese so that I can work for them. Yeah. But how do we regulate these Chinese who come here and tell them, now this is our culture, this is how we work, this is how you treat your workers, so that and actually you be intentional in looking at those companies and the way they are treating their workers. And you look at intentionally, like if they are bringing foremen, do we have foremen in Kenya who can do the work?
Yes.
Why do they need to bring somebody from China because they feel maybe they are more understanding to the culture.
That's right.
Like, how do we regulate such that we only bring experts to come and train us on things that we don't know? Because we find a lot of people who are coming with, or even casuals. You find casuals coming. So how do we regulate that and we become intentional about it? I don't know whether it is IEK now speaking to the Minister of Immigration and telling them that for any infrastructure project, the people who are being brought in, we have to vet them. If they say they're engineers, then they must bring their registration with their board, wherever they have come from.
No,
they must be registered now here as associates, so they can practice here. If you are bringing a foreman, show us that foreman has a skill that a Kenyan foreman does not have, so that we allow him in.
Because we lack a lot in
actually,
the transfer
EBK,
of
maybe
knowledge.
IEK, associations like IEK and IEK can work more with EBK to make sure if you're an engineer, can you get your temporary registration?
Yes.
If you're a graduate engineer coming from China, we have graduates here.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? Yeah, I think Koreans and Japanese try. Europeans are also not bad. Their projects are not bad. But when you come to Chinese, they're good with regards to resources, but I don't see much knowledge transfer. In fact, I don't see much knowledge transfer.
It's a hot topic, especially on the knowledge transfer, meaning also the absorption of graduates. So that we're not losing them out to different professions as well. Yeah.
And you see what he's talking about culture. So Chinese also have an issue with women. So you're on the consultant side and you're giving them instructions and they don't understand. They tell you wala wala too much. Women know wala wala. Wala wala means you're talking too much.
Wow.
And it's like, I'm giving an instruction.
He doesn't see you as a professional.
I am not employed here as a woman. I'm employed here as an engineer.
Right.
And you're actually supervising their work. They have a problem getting instruction, especially on the consulting side.
Yeah.
I deliberately chose to still give the instructions, but they have a problem with the guys. They don't mind the guys telling them what to do, but a lady,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah, and actually, when you speak about that, they also have a problem with hierarchy. And that's the culture I was talking about.
Oh, yes.
Like, if you're a junior engineer, they know you're a junior engineer. The project manager expects that you don't even offer your opinion.
Right.
So you come from the consultant side, maybe you have just seen something that is not going well, and you're trying to tell the project manager, this one you can change. And they tell you, big boss. So it's like they expect only the resident engineer to... sometimes, yes, you're going to follow that protocol according to the contract, whereby is the resident engineer who is going to write officially to the contractor. But sometimes some of the things you need to solve them on site. Yeah. So they have that issue with that hierarchy issue.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That the culture they come in with, I think, considering that all of these projects usually pass through the government, they're government projects funded, of course, by the different organizations. There needs to be an element of where they're also cultured on our culture and how we undertake our projects. And I feel like our institutions also need to, that is for the government institutions, they need to protect the professions. I have been in a project where, in my opinion, I felt like the foreigners did not do us justice in a professional manner. I won't go into context, but I feel that if we had more oversight and regulation from our government institutions based on the contract terms and conditions on how to operate and work together, then I think it would have been protected from, I think, a lot of the incidences that went through, because you want to protect your image as a professional and you want to ensure that your quality is seen in the work that is implemented. A foreigner will come, but has he understood the local context under which we operate? Yes? Or they're coming to impose what works in the West. They need to fully understand how we operate. We have different transport movements. We have borders. We have, handcuts. Yes? We have people crossing, jaywalking anywhere, even with barriers as tall as this height. People jump over them. And those are contexts that foreigners need to understand when bringing designs that, of course, we have to impose. And that's the whole element of 40% local content. What is our input and what are we gaining? capacity-wise. But if we let foreigners come and dictate how it's supposed to be done, then we see incidences happening over and over.
Having worked in an international organization, now my idea of best practice is what has been tested to work abroad or where it's working, contextualized locally. Best practice, even in County A, will differ from County B.
That's right.
And we know that. There's a project which I know why these two counties were together, and the next project we did each county separately. There is that local context. So we need that. I think we love what is it. Kenyans, we have this bit of loving what comes from abroad.
We do.
But at the end of the day, best practice is what works contextualized locally.
Yeah.
And I think I may have fought a lot of battles with regards to that, because I'm like, no, your best practice may not be our best practice. Right. Or can we borrow from your best practice and contextualize it to what can work locally? And also, it's not always about foreigners. At times it's about contractors who have invested in the business, and they don't understand how engineering works. And someone tells you, no, you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, no, I have worked for a consultant. I know that you should do X, Y, Z. And they don't understand. So I remember there's a time an engineer once said that when you start a project, you should have a presentation and take the contractor through what the contract is, what is expected of them, how do they qualify works before something gets to the IPC. How does it get approved to the point where you can now claim it? And how the approval processes work, because now having worked with a contractor and I'm like, no, that's not how things work. And you see, you find yourself really arguing with them because they're telling you, no, you need to learn how it, and I'm like, I know how it works and I'm teaching you. But how many times do they even listen to the professionals they hire?
I think when you come there, I think I'll go back to what I said. You have the consultancy side and you have the contractor side. It does not mean that the consultants are the only professionals. We should also have the contractors being professionals.
Yes.
Right.
The proprietor may be not a professional because maybe he's the one who is bringing the money to do the work. But the people who are actually implementing the work, they should be professionals. By that I mean is we should actually have a site agent who actually sometimes should have the same experience as a resident engineer. Because sometimes you find that most of the issues that we have with the contractors is because you're not speaking from the same professional level. And what happens is you find that the contractor came, he just has graduates, and those people are not very experienced in the kind of work that he's doing. So even you supervising them becomes very difficult. It's like you're doing the work for them. So I think the government and should actually come up with a way of making sure that when a contractor says he has a site agent, that these are the person who actually implementing the project. He's a team leader on that side. All the communication goes to him. All the meetings, all the site inspection meetings, they are there so that we don't have a place whereby the contractor just puts the site agents on papers. But during implementation, there is no professional who is actually doing the work.
Always an implementation.
Engineer, have you experienced where the contractor has those people, but he has his idea how it works? So the site agent and the consultant seem to understand each other. But the contractor is on this other side and he can't understand. And you remember the site agent works for the contractor. So he's a business person. He's telling you to do something and you're like, no, it doesn't work that way. So it's a turbulent, it needs to be sorted.
Yeah, but I think that's a conversation that can...
and if you look at it, the impacts also come in several ways. Yes, the impacts, they come in manners in which even the public can relate with, like falling buildings. Yes, you have of course development partners or construction companies not having the qualified expertise, or responsible engineers on the job. Then you'll end up with random people who don't have the experience undertaking the works. And also, I'll throw this back to the public. Hire your professional engineers. We might be expensive, but we'll give you the quality it deserves. Just because a fundi has undertaken works, a construction of a building at a certain area where the materials were rocky, so the foundation was strong, doesn't mean that the same building will be constructed in a clay material soil area and it will stand. There's a lot of engineering that goes into the bringing up of structures, the foundation elements, and the weight of the beams and the columns going all the way down to the foundation. So if you look at who you're speaking to, does your fundi understand? Or is it because it's done this 3 or 4 times? Have they followed the due process? And even to the public, I think our bodies have come up with mechanisms where we can report questionable constructions that are going on. Let's not let it or leave it to the government. The government can't do everything. What is your responsibility as a public or a citizen, to the safety of those around you? Do you see injustices? Do you see incompetence in the engineering works around you? We have not only not only the National Construction Authority where you can report to, we also have the Engineers Board of Kenya, which oversights the profession. So there are places where you as a public can also come in and give your input, voice your opinion, and also to young engineers. What are we doing? Let's be like the Gen Zs. Let's not wait or let's not fear the kind of look we will have to our seniors. I know we suffer a lot as millennials, how we look to our seniors, or the implications of what we do. How will it affect our careers? But in a true essence, if we're fighting for what's right, if you're speaking on injustices and incompetencies that have massive impacts on the overall safety of citizens, I think we should boldly come out and speak against such issues. Not only to the responsible organizations that we know, but also to the public. Yes, Gen Zs will do a TikTok about it, someone will do something about it.
I think that's a very good approach of dealing with this issue.
Yeah.
And I will usually ask people in the public, even if you're doing your house and you are spending 50 million in a house, how you also do insurance. Actually, you have insurance for your cars, right?
Yes.
You have insurance for your family. Now you're doing a 50 million house. And the insurance that you can get is to get a good engineer, a good professional, a good architect, a good QS. And you are not willing to take that insurance. And if something happens, you lose all the 50 million.
Yeah.
Like, how much if you're told you're going to spend, let's assume 5 million on, is your insurance for this building that you are doing. So I think the public should also know that when we pick professionals, we actually pick professionals as insurance. Because you can actually build a house using that fundi. But it's when things go wrong, that's when you realize the importance of this engineer. Mm. And that's why I usually say sometimes actually, we as engineers, when you give us job, you're not just there just to supervise the job and make some money. We'll actually say for you, because sometimes you find that because the fundi do not know the impact of this building that they are building and the forces that are in, they'll actually over-reinforce the building sometimes. So when I come in and I'm going to audit and realize, and when I'm doing the design, I'm going to give you an optimal design which can support your house, but it is cheaper. And sometimes when you hire an architect, you might build a house without an architect, but you will come to realize that there should have been a window here. The airflow is not working. Some of those things. And if you look at it, you're going to build a house and then you're not happy about it for the rest of your life. And this is something that you're building once. So the public should actually understand the importance of these the professionals that are in the industry. What she has said is true. Us as now we are millennials and we have now the Gen Zs. I think we can use the platforms that we have, the social media, to educate the public on what value do we add to this construction when we come in. Mm. And sometimes, for most of the client, they will allow you to do the design. And during the design period, sometimes you don't even know the ground profile, don't know how the soils are. So you actually, when implementing is when you come and realize that maybe I had done this as a shallow foundation. It needs to be a deep foundation. But you are going to take me, do the design, and then after that you tell a fundi, implement. So for me, I'm waiting for you to tell me now we can start construction. Several months down the line, I pass there and the building is already up. So
at times it's not even up, because you may even find that you had done the right design for it, but what happens to the adjacent properties.
That's right.
Was the construction on their adjacent property. There's a time we had a variation that we had to create a retaining wall because the adjacent property was not well supported. So we needed to support it, else it would have toppled. So it's not even your building that would fail, but it is the adjacent property, and that's another issue. But a professional is expensive. Wait until you incur the costs of not involving a professional, and you're going to understand why. That's when you realize that. And actually, even the quality, you notice buildings that have been designed and constructed with the supervision of professionals and compare them to what the fundis do. And at times it's with over-reinforcing.
Over-designing.
Over-designing. You know, the funniest thing is someone is not ready to pay professionals a certain percentage, but how your slab is over-reinforced. You spent 5 times more.
Way higher, exactly.
I think someone wants to hear it's 20,000, but how much have you spent on your slab times 5?
Exactly.
It is like 6 times more than you would have spent if you paid for the professional, if you paid to have professionals involved.
And it's something, we encourage the public to look into, do your research. We have so many social media platforms on educating the public. Know your engineer, understand what they're doing, get informed. Don't jump into what's cheaper. And I think as we want to narrow down, I would like to invite our amazing team to just give the future engineers some sort of advice, how to navigate the industry, and also some advice as well on recommendations to our oversight bodies and the government institutions on how to secure the engineering profession going forward. So yes.
We start with me.
Yes.
Before I even advise, you talked about the public needs to make sure that they talk about the unsafe buildings around them.
Right.
In AAK, we have the hashtag Mulika Mjengo. We even have the hashtag Mulika Mjengo Mondays. Please, if you notice you have an unsafe building, just get to the AAK website. We have that hashtag Mulika Mjengo. Get to our social media, any of the social medias, and actually indicate that this development seems not to be well done and it seems unsafe. We are able to report to Borax and EBK, the regulatory authorities, and NCA, who now take up that matter. So my advice, I think, to the younger professionals, allow me to speak to my younger self.
Sure.
Network a lot, and networking means put yourself in spaces where engineering matters are being done. I have loved being actively involved in professional associations. It has impacted on me with regards to growth and with regards to gaining of skills. And that's where even opportunities are. You see, when someone knows you, they end up saying that, I can recommend a certain person to join in. I can recommend a certain person for a job. So network a lot and gain skills. And when you gain skills, with time, you'll know this is something I need to learn. I may not need to learn that. So you're able to know with time. So skills, they're very important. I think they work so well for you. And again, interact more with your professionals. You will get to know a lot and you'll get to grow a lot.
So before you give your parting shot, maybe just to clarify, I know we engineers know the lingua and the slang and the abbreviations, but to the public, when she mentioned AAK, she meant the
Architectural Association of Kenya. And it is a professional association for the built environment. It's not an architect's thing. We have chapters, we have 8 chapters, we have 8 different chapters. There we have architects chapter, engineers chapter, town planners chapter, landscape architects chapter, construction management chapter. So there interior designers. We have all built environments having their chapters indeed.
Yes. And maybe just to ask one question before we get to his parting shot. Please just tell us about yourself as a young engineer, as a female engineer. How are you achieving so much, where you are, and navigating the work-life balance?
Do we have work-life balance?
Good
I don't
question.
know. I think work-life balance is quite contextual. When I was young and found myself in engineering, Of course, we said, I think the first thing that changed how I work is we noticed how much we're paid. And then you realize we have something known as moonlighting. And if you work more, you end up, if you do the side jobs, the side things, it gives you more. Yeah. And also you're able to learn more from the same project. So I think when you're younger, I think it's okay to work more so long as you're doing it for yourself. And also there's the number of hours you need before you perfect a skill. Right. No one will force you to stay overnight and work on your design, like what has kept me overnight. Or nothing. No one will force you to stay overnight and work on a tender. We have deadlines. We have so many things that matter and how you do your work. But what I would say is, as you work, rest. Please rest. I think I really ended up suffering from so much burnout. Because of not resting enough. Respect your body. But it's okay to stretch yourself. You'll always know this time to stretch myself. This is time to rest. I think what we don't allow a lot is, it's time to rest and you're like, no, maybe I need to keep working. No, please rest. And I don't know, I think with time you're able to figure it out. Yes, I'm still figuring it out. I don't know whether we have it, but I'm still figuring it out. But there's a time you get a strong intuition that this time round, I just need to work 3 things that I go, and you do that. And then there are times when you're like, I need to shut down for some months. Right. I think I've allowed myself to go with the flow. Go with the flow, but respect your body. What I will say about a burnout is that resting as you work, especially if you're overstretching yourself, which is not a bad thing, because if you overstretch yourself in your 20s, when you have the energy, you notice that you're able to keep the same vibe when you're in your 30s. Yeah. But resting, allowing yourself enough resting space can really help you save the months you'll waste when you're trying to recover from a burnout.
Take it easy, yes. Engineer, what about your work-life balance? Are you always in the office, or do you have a life? Some of us don't.
Let me say it depends. Actually, sometimes when I have a very serious project that has serious deadlines, you'll find me leaving the office a bit late.
What is a bit late? Just give context to the public. Because a bit late for most people is 6 p.m. And I know for sure you're speaking about 12 midnight or 2 a.m. Yes, let's be honest.
Okay, let me say, as of now, I've not gotten out. I've not gone home at 12 at night. But during my young days, I used to. And actually, during the previous job where I worked, I would find myself sometimes working the whole night. You are on site during the day, and then you find yourself, maybe there's some design that you need to do. And you're on your computer the whole night until around 5. And then you sleep a bit, you go to site again. And then during those 8 hours, you find some time to sleep in your vehicle. So, talking about life-work balance, it's a topic that, yes, needs to be discussed, but I'm going to approach it from this perspective. Number one, as a young engineer especially, know that, we have plastic and elastic limits. And for your brain somehow, even if you feel like you are in a plastic limit, actually it expands. So you don't become dumber by working more. You actually become sharper by working more. So it is good that you can stretch yourself. And what she said is very good, because sometimes, and she was asking about the future of engineering. I think there's a lot that is happening right now. And there's a lot of changes that are happening in the industry. We have all these things like AI. Some of us know AI is ChatGPT, but there's a lot that is happening. We have some apps that are doing interior designs. We have some apps that actually, I think even in the future, you're going to have some apps that are doing the structural designs for us. And this is a place whereby you cannot just step back and continue doing the same thing that you have been working. Yeah. So you actually need to read. So sometimes it's not just working. It's actually reading and improving yourself. You need to do machine learning. You need to do programming. And if you're left out, it's called the fourth revolution. Yeah. You're going to get out of the industry. So actually sometimes you need to do more, work more hours, research more, so that you are not left out of the industry. Now, when it comes to work, I know engineers will deal with projects. Sometimes you're going to have a project that has a very strict deadline. And sometimes you have to push yourself. You have to work extra hours so that you actually meet the deadline. But after that, you find that there's a slow season before you get another project that is going to occupy you that much. So that's the time to relax. That's the time to take off. That's the time to go for holidays so that you can relax your mind so that the next project you are able to. But looking at it, we have also other factors. Like for me, I'm a family man. So you have to really balance because your children don't understand. They don't care about what you do. So if you don't see them for months because you are working, they're not going to understand. They're going to say, Daddy, yes, there was money, but you're not my dad. Mm-hmm. So there's also that balance. You have to balance the family and you have to balance the work. Yeah. So, and also, she talked about networking. You cannot network if you're always working. Yeah. So you need some time to actually meet your friends. And your network is just the professionals. There's some things that actually come about in life. There's some things that you need friends. And those friends don't necessarily need to be engineers. So you have to balance all that. You have to have time to meet your friends. Must have time for your family. And you have time for your hobby. Because sometimes your hobby actually becomes your employer in future. Mm-hmm. And these things that we call the physical, the spiritual, and the mental. Yeah. So you have to look at all those things. You need some time with your God. You need some time even with yourself. Yeah. So you need to balance all that as you navigate the journey of engineering. Now,
what's your parting shot
going to my parting shot and my advice to young engineers? I think I'm going to approach it from this perspective. I'm not just going to talk to the young engineers, but I'm going to speak first of all to our employers. And our biggest employer is the government because they give us most of the jobs. Please, when you are giving out consultancy services to consultants, have a place for young engineers. Don't give us the mandatory requirements or the key stuff that are required to be only those guys with 15 years experience, 10 years experience. Have a place whereby these guys can work with junior engineers so that to develop the future. Because if you're only going to be working with the old engineers, 10 years down the line, you're not going to have those engineers maybe. So who are going to take these spaces? So when you have a contract or a consultant service, have a place whereby you have an elder engineer, maybe even a middle engineer, and a junior engineer. If you have, let's say, a highway engineer, have a very experienced highway engineer, then a mid-level highway engineer, and then a graduate engineer, so that you have that kind of continuity and also create jobs for these young engineers. The other thing is to the public, please engage engineers. We are here. We are much willing to help you. And our fee, as Engineer Morogo said, is very little compared to the risk that you are putting yourself in. Please give us those jobs so that we make sure that you also save and you are safe when you are building your infrastructure. The other thing is to the government. There is no development that has happened without construction. If you slow down infrastructure, you're not going to have that development. Because whether you want to go into agriculture, there must be engineering in it. We must build water pans. We must build dams to give us water. So you cannot slow down the construction industry and actually achieve the development that you want. So we need more investment in infrastructure. If you're going to manufacturing, we need to build those plants so they still work for the construction. Right. The other thing is my final shot to the young engineers. Number one, engineering is a noble career. It's very satisfying. And money will come, but later. So there is a lot of money in engineering, but later. So have patience. And when you see your friends driving very posh cars from wash and all other things, please stick to engineering. You're going to get much more satisfaction from engineering than those things. Yeah. And of course, you want to have wealth that you leave, one, for your family and also for your generations. Right. So if you have legit money, you're actually going to have that wealth that you are going to be happy and enjoy. Right. But if you have money from other illegal activities, you're not going to enjoy that money. And it comes with its own side effects, let me call that, consequences. That's my parting shot.
Thank you. I think for me, my parting shot, But before I jump in, let me just give a few comments on the work-life balance. It's not easy as young engineers because we are constantly fighting for the space to be seen, to be heard, and also to have an impact on what's happening, to be involved as well. So a lot of the times we find ourselves in spaces where we don't have a life. You don't have time to meet your friends. I know so many young female engineers that are not married. I know a lot of the aspect is because we intimidate you people, but we are chill. Yes? Marry us. Okay? Yes, we do not come with horns. We are not frightening. Yes, but don't disassociate. I know a lot of times we might have serious faces. It's because half the time we are calculating designs in our head or solving issues. I had to remind our team to smile because we're not in the office when we began. So yes, we are easy to go, easy to engage with us. And engineers, young engineers out there, have a work-life balance. Plan for it, mandate it in your life. It's important for your mental health. It's important for marriage. Yes, I had mentioned that. But for my parting shot, to the young engineers, I'd like to encourage you to have the audacity of a man, as I'd earlier mentioned. Walk with the command and the authority that you have what it takes to be in spaces that you don't feel the need to be in. Let us be very proactive in the industry discussions and challenges that are happening. Let us be involved, in all the policy related matters. Let us be in boards. Let us advocate for what's right, for the good of the profession and for the good of the safety of the citizens. I think when we do that, borrowed by how we see the Gen Z operate, we'll be able to come in with our integrity. We have the code of ethics that we stand by, our foundation, and have integral work and competent work and durable work seen by the public. To our government agencies, to our oversight agencies, IEK, that is the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, EBK, that is the Engineers Board of Kenya, AAK, the Architectural Association of Kenya. We appreciate the work you've done so far in trying to improve on policy, in trying to improve on implementation of the acts, plans, policies that are in place. We feel your effort. We want you to involve us more as young engineers. Let us be part of the conversation. So we trickle it down as we did during the Gen Z protest. We broke down to them what issues were and how to navigate it. And they came with a force. And that's what we want to be reflected in the engineering profession. Involve us as we involve the Gen Zs. Bring us on board. I think we also have a lot of challenges and experiences and successes that we can bring on board. We appreciate the work. We feel like there's a lot that still needs to be done to cover all the issues that are there in the industry. And we feel that we will bring in our voices and our drive and efforts to that as well. So I think we've come to the end of our session. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to thank the IEK chapter and the Future Leaders chapter on engaging us and hearing our thoughts on young engineers, our challenges, experiences, successes. Please comment below on what you'd want us to talk about, questions that you have. If you want to reach out on issues, please remember to comment below. We'll definitely reach out and also have more things to discuss. What do you want us to talk about? Let us know. So thank you so much, and do have a lovely day. Say hi to an engineer next to you, and don't forget to smile. Bye-bye.
Bye.